Hello again. Welcome back to week 20 of year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 3. So we're continuing through the Gospel of John. So last time we saw the Lord in the temple with the people and the religious authorities divided about him and arguing with him and each other. And then we saw them bring to him a woman who had been caught in sin and asked him whether she should be stoned as Moses had commanded in the law. The Lord affirms the law's judgment tacitly, but urges the first stone to be cast by whoever in the crowd is without sin himself. The entire crowd melts away, with none of them measuring up to that standard, and the Lord, who alone is without sin, gives mercy to the woman, urging her to go and sin no more. Having done so, he continues to preach there in the temple, continuing the conversation with them. So we'll pick up in verse 12 of chapter 8. Again Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Then the Pharisees said to him, You are testifying on your own behalf. Your testimony is not valid. Jesus answered, Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, because I know where I have come from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from or where I am going. You judge by human standards. I judge no one. Yet even if I do judge, my judgment is valid, for it is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. In your law it is written that the testimony of 2 witnesses is valid. I testify on my own behalf, and the Father who sent me testifies on my behalf. Then they said to him, Where is your Father? Jesus answered, You know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. He spoke these words while he was teaching in the treasury of the temple, but no one arrested him, because his hour had not yet come. So there's some strangeness to this passage, or some awkwardness for us as we read it, because it seems like the Pharisees have their gotcha moment. In the previous readings, Jesus says, I don't bear witness of myself, because as your law says, whoever bears witness of himself, his testimony is not true. And then he continues, and he says, well, I am the light of the world. And they say, oh, we got you, in your own words, we got you. And Jesus says, even if I do testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, but then he says, but I'm not testifying by myself, because I testify on my own behalf, and the Father who sent me testifies as well. So there's kind of this dual reality going on, where Jesus says, my words testify of me, the words that the Father sent me to say. We saw that previously, but he does also, effectively what he's showing us here is that his truth can be discerned on the one hand by the way that he begins, not testifying of himself, but bringing witnesses, his deeds and the words that he speaks, and the witness of the Father. And also that being God, he cannot be constrained by these things, which is why he says, you judge by human standards, which don't apply to me, is tacitly present, because I am not, because I am Almighty God. But I judge no one, he says. But even if I do judge, my judgment is valid, he says, because I don't judge alone, but the Father and I, the Father who sent me and I judge together. So there's this collision, on the one hand, of the infinity, of the unlimitableness of, that's a great word, unlimitableness of Jesus Christ, God and man, God and human, which, on the one hand, answers perfectly with the strictures of the law, with the prophecies of the law, and at the same time, is not and cannot be contained or constrained by those rules. And we see both at once as Jesus is speaking. This is not that he slipped and said the wrong thing. He's saying, is rather, he does bear witness of himself, because in himself he is the very image of the Father who bears witness of him. And this mystery of the Holy Trinity is revealed to us in Jesus Christ, who reveals it to us himself, and yet is confirmed in his witness by the Father and the Spirit who are with him. This is, I think, at least partially what's going on here. Of course, when he talks about himself as the light of the world, this is hearkening back to the very beginning of the Gospel of John, when John says, in him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not comprehend it or cannot overwhelm it, or cannot overcome it. And it brings to this moment of judgment to the Pharisees, and they miss it, because he says, I am the light of the world, and they reject the light on a technicality, that the light just bore witness of itself, but that's what light does. Light shines. And that reality that the Lord is revealing himself as the light of the world, and they cast themselves into darkness by rejecting it. That is the really important, really terrifying subtext of this passage. So anyway, those are some thoughts. For now, we'll wrap up week 20 there, and I'll see you all again next week. God bless you.